Welcome to our pod. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
Oh my God. Can we restart?
Means,
Holy
yes.
cow. It is the season finale. And welcome to our pod. And by that, I mean on Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
And none of that sounded right when I said it out loud. I was like, what did I do wrong? And then you looked at me and I was like, but what did I do wrong? And I was like, oh, that's what I did wrong.
Hannah has like a usual spiel. We don't have it like a pre-recorded thing. So
Yeah.
she has to do it perfectly every time. And usually I kind of mess her up when I come in because I'll either say my name weirdly or I'll like whisper something and it always throws her off.
Yeah, but we are two best friends who do a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time.
Oh yeah, I forgot about
And
that.
today we are closing out our cycle through the Legendborn for now because
fastest cycle.
The fastest cycle we've done because it's 2 books. The 3rd book isn't coming out until next year. But we'll definitely be pulling for the new book series. I'm sure we'll reach out and ask for advanced reader copies so we could get it right away and do all that stuff. But
we'll be back in Legendborn.
And this is just one of those episodes where my birthday was yesterday, full disclosure. We're recording the Monday after. I have a list of things to do for the podcast that I haven't gotten done yet, and it's thundering outside. So I think between all of that, my entire
under a little bit of a
energy
crunch because like yesterday was Hannah's birthday, so I was like, oh, we don't have to record on your birthday, it's fine. But then today, when we're both off of work and able to record, it's like, okay, well, there's a thunderstorm, so we might.
And Laura lives on a farm, so she does not always have reliable internet. So I was like, okay, we were kind of catching up, and I was like, oh, we actually have to record, and then maybe we can catch up after.
Yeah, do that later.
Have to make sure we get it. So that's a little bit behind the scenes, and it's a season finale episode, so we're just kind of wrapping up our thoughts on Legendborn and Bloodmarked and this very, very short season into what it looks like when Hannah and Laura do an actual buddy read together.
Yeah, this literally felt like a total change of pace compared to previous books that we've covered on the pod, just because it was like we literally just kind of buddy read this and we wanted to for a while, and it was kind of last minute thrown in, and it was so fun.
Well, also, this week is kind of our third, like, isn't it? Yeah, it's the 3rd year we'll be doing the podcast. We're starting. It's our 2-year anniversary. And so I'm kind of glad
3-year anniversary.
Our 3-year anniversary. Oh my gosh, you're right. 3 years of doing this podcast together. And I kind of like that we did a much lighter book series for January, February, because there is something fun and refreshing to say, like, oh my gosh, we've come full circle in 3 years. We've done lots of deep dives, lots of different things, and we found our stride. We found our people, it feels like a lot of the time. And coming to this book, it felt kind of like going home because, like, I don't know, and like obviously this is season finale of Tracy Deonn's wonderful books, so we want to talk about that. But like, I genuine, like, Laura and I are best friends in real life, and that is why we did this.
Wouldn't it be hilarious if it was just like we
3 years in we were strangers,
do not like each other in real life, but we pretend to be best friends for this podcast?
Like,
sorry,
go
really
ahead, Hannah.
Books.
We just really love books, and so we have to do it. But
this is purely a work relationship.
But I think sometimes, like, you and I get bogged down in the, like, well, we have to do this and we have to do that. And I do love the fact that these 2 books were kind of just a refreshing, like, let's just riff on 2 YA novels and laugh our way through. And you had a moment where you were like, I hope people know we love these books. Like, we genuinely enjoyed them. It's just, we're having the best time riffing on them because it's a YA novel, and you get to do that when you're an adult talking about teenagers.
When you're in your 30s and you're talking about 16-year-olds, it's very easy to be like, but they're in love. And so I feel like you and I were constantly kind of like throwing out disclaimers throughout this season where we're making fun of something, and then we're like, okay, but actually
they are children.
Like, they're children, and that the love that you have as children is legitimate. We're not, discounting the love that you feel at that time. It's just the way that you feel about love and people changes. We're always throwing out these disclaimers in regards to this season. But I totally agree. Like, this was such a fun set of books to cover, basically because it was just like very little stress. Honestly, these were fairly quick to read, and they were just like books that it was something that you know that I do not like the type of book where it's just like I have to just roll with it because I
Hmm.
very much want to like understand like why is this happening. But this book series forces you to just kind of roll with it because it's like timelines and things that are happening are so breakneck speed that you just
Hmm.
have no option but to roll with it.
It it's just so weird to think about the fact that this book takes like place over a semester of school, like, or
Yes.
these two books, it's a semester of school.
Hmm.
Can you imagine having to deal with all of this trauma that like quickly? Like, oh, I couldn't.
I mean, no, because I can barely get through 1 week. So,
Right?
but, and I just think that some of the things that are happening in this seem so strange when you put it in the context of the amount of time that is taking place,
Hmm.
because it's like, it seems like months have passed and it's like 2 days.
Right?
And
Like,
there's so much happening within such a short period of time. And I don't know if this was like intentional by the author to make this such a condensed time period. I I would really be curious to talk to Tracy and ask her like, was
right?
this something that you had intentionally wanted to condense like this? Because I really feel like this would have benefited from a much longer time period.
Yes, I would agree with that. I think that like sometimes it's harder when you have this kind of condensed look where you're just
Hmm.
like, oh no, it all has to happen really quickly. You're just
Hmm.
like going from thing to thing to thing, and it's like, I can't do all that. Like that's great,
And
so
I wonder, because I don't know that I really recognize this happening as much. Like it happens in YA books where they're really fast paced, but this is something else. Like this is on another level fast. And I don't know if it's just
yeah.
because of the fantasy elements thrown into it as well, because there's so many different things happening. But I'm kind of curious, like, do I need to visit some more YA fantasy just to see what those timelines are like as comparison? Because this seems so fast.
It does seem really fat. Well, and I do wonder if it's intentional because it's like, well, if it lasted for a longer
Hmm.
time, you don't have some of the because I think a big part of these books is like especially with YA, I think there is always a struggle of the quote unquote self-insert character
Hmm.
where you have to have a lot of teens want to feel the drama like in their bones, or at least I did as a dramatic teenager who was very into theater. Um,
Hmm.
but like you want to think that that could possibly happen to you, or you would have the same feelings, or you would react in certain ways.
Hmm.
And so I do think if you have like a longer book time period where it's like, oh, this is between the ages of 16 and 19, you're losing out in certain age groups where it's
Hmm.
like, well, how much is a child who's like 14 reading these books for the first time going to buy in a 3 book series over the course of 4 years, and not like
Oh,
want to
oh,
come
I get
back
what
to
you're
the
saying. Like the time
yeah,
commitment to read the books,
the time commitment to read the books and like sometimes with
the investment of it all. Like,
the
do
investment of it
do I
all.
invest my time into a 10 book series?
Well, that it's not even just that, but it's like, do you invest yourself? Because like I know when I was reading books as a child or as a teenager,
Hmm.
like it was hard to read books that took the course over like 7 years or so, like
Hmm.
in the book sphere. Like if you think about like the book series that must not be named because of their turf
Hmm.
author,
Hmm.
um, that it's weird reading those books as a child, and you have to like be careful how you read them. Like we all grew up with those books, but like I have sisters whose kids are reading those books right now, and they
Hmm.
have set timelines for which book a child can read when, because you have to grow
Interesting.
up with the series, because the beginning books might be appropriate for a 7-year-old because it's talking about 11 year
Sure, sure,
olds,
sure.
but a 7-year-old can't read a book about 17-year-olds who are dealing with adult themes. Like you have to
Hmm.
grow up
Hmm.
with the
Hmm.
books. And we live in an era where we don't really let people do that very much. So you have to have this condensed sphere of like, okay, who's going to be reading Legendborn? Kids between
Sure.
the ages of 14 and 17. So like you have to capture that type of like who's going to be a reasonable
Hmm.
protagonist, how old are they going to be, and like what's quote unquote marketable. And so I do think there is a reason for having it in this condensed timeline to keep it with a
Hmm.
16-year-old so people are more invested in like this is a series that I can read between the ages of 14 and 16, and I'm going to read all of them, or I'm going to be old enough when the next book comes out that I still want the nostalgia of it.
Sure.
Like you still want to
Sure.
go back to those characters.
I would almost argue though that like this book series could be read by a wider age range. Like
That's fair.
I wouldn't just limit it to like high school and a little bit older. I would say that, you know, seventh and eighth grade, I would feel comfortable giving this book to. Like I think they could handle the themes, and I think that there are important things that people need to be teaching their children, and that people need to be understanding. And
Well,
this is a good entry point for some of these things for people, like to understand some of the themes within these books. And I think there's a lot of kids who in seventh and eighth grade could easily handle some of these things and should know about them.
well, I think that that's even like a bigger reinforcement of probably why it's more condensed and
Mm-hmm.
probably like an age 16er, because you're more likely to let a 13-year-old read about a 16-year-old, but you may not want your 13-year-old reading about 19-year-old like adult people.
That's fair. That's fair. I see what you mean about like the older the characters become, then
Hmm.
the situations presented become
Yes.
more adult. I get that from the context of like especially relationships. We're getting into more like sexual things happening probably that
Right.
likely are not appropriate. I think I was leaning more on like the themes presented in the book, which do get very deep, dark at times as well. But I still think quite important for even younger audience to read about. I do
A
think
thousand
though that
percent.
I still am going to stand by it and say that this book in my mind would have been better if it was stretched out over the period of like a year. Like the first book was like one school year, and then the
That
second
is
book
very
was like
fair.
a second school year. I didn't write the book series. I have no right to ask this. Tracy Deonn is a genius and has this all planned out, and I'm sure that she's got it wrapped up in a way that makes complete sense and everything. I'm just my own selfishness and my lack of understanding of things is just me wanting this to be stretched
Right.
out a little more.
That is very fair and totally like that's I get it. And I think my also remembrance of, because I actually really liked fantasy high school stuff growing up.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Because I read a lot of Charmed books and stuff like that. And I remember like a book I want us both to buddy read for the podcast. Um A Great and Terrible Beauty by Libba
Yep,
Bray.
yep.
That has a ton of trauma in it, and it's like over the course
Mm-hmm,
of a year and a half. And it's
mm-hmm,
just like, why is everything so fast? And it's to keep
mm-hmm.
people the same age because
Sure.
like things go off the rails if they age too much, because you admit like, oh, were
And
they
you know what? That's
actually
not to say that a bunch of really terrible things cannot happen to you within a short period of time. They
right?
absolutely can. They absolutely can. And that's also not to say that, like, within this fantasy book, that these things are totally impossible to happen within. We have a person who changes into an owl. Obviously, like, this is the timeline is not the most unbelievable part of this book. So,
Right?
this is me just being, like I said, being a selfish
Very
reader
nitpicky.
and
Like you're
nitpicky. Like I would
yes.
like this to be stretched out over a period of a year because I don't think they're in love. And
That is the
it's
hardest thing to accept is
honestly it
teenagers.
is.
But also
Well, but
I
also
was
I have an issue with the school issue where it's like no one's checking in on them type thing. And if
yeah.
they had all these issues within the first week with her not going to class, this or that, and getting in trouble from the cops, all these things, and being reprimanded, and then suddenly that's just out the door.
Or
That
even
also to me
I'm
is an
s-
issue.
I'm sorry, but the implication that a child should be over the death of their mother in like what, 6 months,
A
or like it
summer.
was like a
A summer.
summer. I cannot tell you how deeply, like was an adult woman when my mom
Mhm.
died, and like 2 years later I was like, maybe I didn't process that emotion like I thought I had.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are so many moments in your life where you're like, oh no, like this year alone, I ate the birthday cake my mom made me. And I was like, oh, the last time I ate that was like right after she died. My
Hmm.
brother-in-law made it for me and I couldn't taste it because I had COVID at the time.
Hmm.
And I was like, and I haven't eaten it again since my 30th birthday. And it's like, wow, you don't think about like stuff like
Sure.
that or how it affects you. So like to have a girl go through 3 months of that and then her best friend be like, you have changed and I don't trust you anymore. And it's like,
Which,
well, her mom died.
and here's the thing, like, if you are a 16-year-old going through something like that and your best friend is also 16 and really relies on you, in the moment you have a very dependent relationship and are really close and everything, I can understand Alice in that moment not understanding what it
Right.
is like to be grieving a parent because she hasn't gone through it. She's able to be compassionate for
Right.
the towards Bree and everything, but at the same time, the extended empathy is not there because again, young adults are quickly working through their emotions and their lives where it's like this thing is
Yes.
important right now. And then a month later, that thing is no longer important. And so when you are Alice and you're like 1 minute you're like, I'm all about this. And then the next month that thing is out the window. You can't quite grasp why your friend hasn't gotten over that thing because you've moved on.
Exactly. And yeah, it's interesting. And I
And grief
do
is not
love
linear either. It's very much up and down and all over the place. And it's not a process where you can say, like, I continually get better because I know, like, within my own grieving situations, I will have a lot of progress and then
Mhm.
I'll have one day and I'm like, well, that's 400 steps back. So it's
Yeah, I
definitely not something that you can just like think that you're always going to progress. And I think that's definitely difficult for teenagers to figure out. So I think that was very actually like astute of Tracy Deonn to like make that something that Alice says, even though like reading it, we're like, Alice, why are you saying
why
that?
would you
Like
do
it's
that?
just it's
Yeah.
just one of those things where as adults you read it and you're like, oh, that was so tone deaf of you to
Yes.
say that. But it's really reasonable of a teenager to or not reasonable, but it's reasonable of the author to write a teenager being like that because it's realistic.
That is very fair. I do like I like that you bring up that point because I do really love the look at grief that this book does because
Oh yes.
it's not just about parental grief, but it is about
Hmm.
like generational grief. And we
Hmm.
talk about that a lot with the Vera character, who I can admit now in the season finale, I thought the I thought the twist was going to be that the Vera they were talking about was Guinevere. And I didn't know if
Oh,
Tracy Deonn picked that name on purpose or like, to kind of show
gotcha,
that
gotcha.
like we don't really talk about the Guinevere character in these books because
Hmm.
she just hasn't been a focus. But I did wonder about like the importance of Guinevere in this tale because like technically that is where Arthur's part of Arthur's lineage as
Right.
well, and she has been off the page so far.
Hmm.
And so when I heard about Vera, I was like, oh, I wonder if like we're gonna find out that Guinevere was black, and like, but I'm not disappointed with the switch because
Sure.
the switch was so important to the story to say that like, hey, Black people's history, oftentimes, especially in America, is rooted in deep seated violence. And
Yes.
you don't get over that just because it didn't happen to you specifically. You are
Yes.
still grieving. Your family still grieves that
Hmm.
fact. And the people who came before you are still harmed by the things that
Hmm.
happened to them. And I thought that was a very astute way to look at
Well, and I
things. And I
think
thought,
really the symbolism with like the root
mm-hmm,
is is so powerful because it's literally something that's rooted in them that
yes,
they all of their ancestors have these branching roots that
mm-hmm,
flow throughout their lines and connect them. And it's like you said, even though this happened not to them directly, they are still connected to it.
mm-hmm.
And I think that that visualization of the root is really powerful.
That's one of my favorite we have little infographics for each of our seasons and it was probably one of my
Mhm.
favorite infographics to make because I really liked the
That was a
thought
great
of the
idea.
root.
Yeah, if anybody
Uh
hasn't seen it, Hannah made this really cool thing where there's a sword going down into the ground and then there's roots coming out of the bottom.
Instead of like the sword piercing the ground, it's
Hmm.
rooted. And I think that that's like, and it's because that imagery was so specific. And I remember Laura and
Hmm.
I were talking about the infographic, and I like sent it to her, and I was like, oh, originally it was just the sword. And I was just going, I was making it rather quickly. And then I was like, wait a second, the root has to be a part of this because it's such
Hmm.
an integral part. And I also like that the root magic is its own thing. Like they very specifically say like, yes, these things take different form, and ether is like a
Hmm. Hmm.
version of that, but root, it like it's more than just the power. It is how you use the power and how you request the power.
Yeah.
And you can
And I like that in the second book we get more of a distinction there because in the
Mhm,
first book it almost seems like it's kind of like a don't call it that. These don't call it ether. It's definitely root. Like, and then you hear
mhm,
other people say they're basically all the same. But then when we get into the second book, it's more of a okay, so they're all kind of the same, but it's the way that you draw upon the power
mhm,
and the way that you utilize it, which
mhm.
is the marked difference.
Yes. And I do think that that was very effective in the second book to really just come back to the drawing board and be like, okay,
Yeah.
maybe that wasn't the most effective way. But I also think not enough books do that, where it's like, hey, you're
No.
allowed to rewrite the rules, but like have a reason for it. And it does feel like Dion did her homework when it came
Well,
to the world
this was
building
a
of like,
very like well done way of doing it though, where it's like you're taking different viewpoints of people and
hmm
Bree is on a journey trying to figure out all these different aspects of her own power and life. And in order for her to do that, she has to question people, she has to learn about things, and she's doing that because not everybody is going to have the exact same experience
hmm
when it comes to this. So when she's asking different people, they have different experiences, they have different ideas on why this magic is the way that it is. And so
right.
that's their own like viewpoint. Like you and I can stand and look at something, but we're still going to have different angles.
Exactly.
And that's kind of what this shows, and I think that that was an excellent way to kind of like you said rewrite the story a little where it's like okay, well, I'm going to get a little more in depth here and actually show you that the characters see these things differently and this
hmm
is maybe a better way of wording it.
Yeah. No, I agree. Such a good book. I
Yeah.
like I feel like that you and I just did so much with the themes and energy of this book of like
Hmm. Hmm.
it's so hard to go into how well Dion did this because like she didn't pull punches. Like this
No.
is a book that is meant for young adult readers to really understand history and connections and what it means to like go against powerful entities that were built for like built against you. And I thought
Yes,
like
systems.
systems, yeah, systems specifically of oppression because like there's so
Hmm.
much one-to-one comparison to the order and
Hmm.
like collegiate circles where it's like,
Yep.
oh, well, we don't believe in affirmative action because it's unfair to bring people who quote unquote didn't earn it. But the families who've been here for generations, they earned a spot because
Yeah,
they've
how
been
did
here
they
for so
earn
long.
it?
Yeah. And it's like, it's not people who earned it. It's just people whose families were a part of it earlier. And it's like, well,
Right.
guess who didn't get to be involved earlier? Um, because you're all racist.
Yeah.
And and I do think that it was really effectively done the way you have like different people questioning Brie in very
Hmm.
specific and like micro and macro aggressive ways, like just
Hmm.
straight out aggression a lot of times, where they obviously think she doesn't have a seat at the table because she's like not as good as a warrior. But the only reasons the others are good at being warriors is because they were built to win a contest. And the
Yeah.
contest actually has very little to do with anything. Um, Especially considering the fact that none of these kids actually seem ready for a war.
Hmm. Hmm.
It seems like they were just play acting because they never expected it to become a thing,
Right.
um, except for Cell, who was constantly thinking that there was going to be a
He was
war.
always worried.
I'm always prepared.
I will say the like one of the things that I really enjoyed about this books or well, about these two books it is that it really showcases how Bree was kind of an outsider no matter where she was
Yeah.
and how she really had to lean into like self-preservation and safety
hmm
in many situations like you were mentioning earlier that were either micro or macro aggressions or like just flat out people being violent. towards her.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the way that this is like showcased in Nick and Bree's relationship is very interesting in the
Mm-hmm.
first book, because he will mention to her, "Oh, just do this or do that." And it's like, no, she can't. She absolutely cannot. And you don't realize that because of your privilege. And then when we get
Mm-hmm.
into the second book, we see all of these things happening, and we think they wouldn't happen if Nick were here. Like, this
Yeah.
book would have been non-existent, because none of this would have come to be if Nick was the Scion of Arthur. And
Mm-hmm.
I think there's less of this feeling like an outsider in the second book, but it's still there. But
Yeah.
it's very prevalent in the first book, where Bree is the only person of color in most situations, and how she very much is trying to navigate like the circumstances of like this really weird thing that she's finding out, that her mom's death might be connected to this order, but she's
Mm-hmm.
also dealing with being the only Black woman in
Yeah.
this entire area, basically.
Right. No, I think that that's very astute, and it's very impressive to watch Bree grow throughout these books. And
Mhm.
I do even think it's very interesting to see the fact that in the second book, we have a moment where Bree also says, like, I don't want either part of my ancestry right now.
Yeah.
And I wonder if she will continue with that, because I also think that
Hmm.
that is a very natural reaction to a lot of people who
Hmm.
struggle with identity, is at some point they try to get rid of both sides and they're like, I am my own
Hmm.
person. And then later on in life, like she is 16, that is the prime age to be like, I am different than the family
Yeah.
who came before me, and I am better than what they
Right. Right.
did. And
Right.
then as you grow, you're like, oh, I could have learned from those
Hmm.
experiences. I didn't have to do this all on my own.
Right.
And I think there is a lot of like anger she feels towards Vera. And I do like and appreciate that, like, again, Brie gets to be a character who gets angry and upset with
Yeah.
people and is like, you guys wronged me. And like, I get to react to that. And I'm very curious to see how that will continue on in the
Sure.
next book, when Brie is someone who's like just kind of cut off both sides of her. Like, and she's like, I will build my power myself. And it's like, okay, well, maybe later you might want those connections, and will you be
Yeah.
able to have them? So
I think you're right on that too, that it's something that is, I hate to use the term like it's a phase, but
I
it
I
does
think it's
kind of seem like that's actually something that a lot of people go through, where they want, when they get frustrated with their own circumstances, they want to reject them
Mhm.
in exchange for something that's more in line with the way that they're feeling at the moment.
Yes, and I wouldn't call it a phase, I would call it an important step in life, because I think
I like that much better.
we don't appreciate always that like people get to have mistakes. Like I think
Hmm.
so many older
Hmm.
people get really offended at the youth of America or anywhere,
Those
of
youths.
like use like where it's like, you should learn from our mistakes, you should
Hmm.
learn from me. And then you have young kids who are like, well, I'm different than you. And
Hmm.
I think sometimes it's like, yes, and where it's like, hey, everyone needs to have the stage in their life where they are selfish 18 to 22-year-olds.
Yeah.
It looks different with everyone, but lots of people go through that step
Hmm.
in stage in their life. And it's okay
Hmm.
that it happens. And we can all appreciate that that's not who they're going to be forever. But
Yeah.
like that happens. And I
And
think if
let's
we
be
let,
real, like a lot of people in their 60s have that selfish moment where, and they never come
yes.
out of it.
No, because like at some point they're just like, well, I get to do what I want. I've lived long enough. And it's like,
Yeah, and they're just like, I
fair
can't
enough.
change now.
Yeah.
It's like,
Oh my
I'm
gosh, the
locked
I
in.
can't change now.
Like, really?
I had someone
Can't teach
recently
an old
say,
dog new tricks.
I
Like,
had someone recently say to me, I'm old school, I'm 50. And I'm like, you can't say that at age 50 anymore. Like you've been around for the internet a lot. Like, what are you talking about?
that's strange. Like,
I
no.
know. I'm like, I can't wait for millennials to be like, I'm old school, I'm 50. And it's like, what do we mean? Like, we are consummate
So this might
babies.
be like
Like,
too personal to share, but I was talking with my therapist recently, and she said something about like, oh, that's just like that generation that thinks that way. She said like, I'm part of that. She goes, I'm 40. I'm like part of that generation, and we all kind of think that way. And I'm like, what?
40.
40? I'm like, you're clumping yourself in with this generation? What? Like,
You're
you're
an
my generation,
exennial
aren't you?
at best. Like you are a like Gen X millennial cusper. Like that's it.
I
You're not
was like,
part of any
I
generation.
don't think so, but okay.
I oh my gosh. So yeah, but I do think that like it is a natural part of like rejecting. You're right
Yeah,
when you feel frustrated. And I do think that there's like
I do it
deep
still, honestly. Like, if I feel frustrated about something that's going on in my life, my one of my reactions is easily to just reject it, to just be like,
yep.
I hate this. I don't want to do it anymore. I am done with it. I want nothing to do with
hmm
it.
Yeah, and I think that that's just a very fair reaction, and I do think Bree's having that. But you have that moment where
Hmm.
you're like, "Oh, like I can't wait to see what comes next." Because like, I do hope at the end of the
A lot
day,
of
the
times
message
you come
isn't
around.
like, "Yeah, I know." I'm like, I really hope in the next book it's not just like a it. And she was right to do that. It's like, well, she is very harsh towards Vera, and Vera is also
Hmm.
a very different generation if we're looking at this
Yeah,
in
I mean
context.
that's actually true.
Where it is very true. She is actually part of a different
Yeah,
generation.
me and my therapist are the same generation.
I know, but Vera, baby boomer central. No, I'm
Yeah.
joking. But I do think that there is a certain layer of like a we don't always give the older generation grace enough to be like, okay, well,
Hmm.
you're making that decision at a different time. And if you think in context with the story, Vera was probably Bree's age when that
Yeah.
happened to her. So, like, she was a child
Hmm.
making decisions that made sense in the moment as a 16-year-old in that time.
Yeah.
And and Bree comes at it with this like, well, shouldn't you know that you made a mistake? And Vera's like, I did my best. And it's like, well, it's the yes and like,
Two things can
yes,
be
you
true.
could, right. And right now, like, yes, you're right, Brie. Vera did make a mistake probably because she used a power in a way that it wasn't supposed to be used or appreciated. But
Hmm.
at the same time, she was doing the best she could. And
Yeah,
you don't know how you would have reacted in that type of situation because you've never had to experience it.
exactly.
So it's very interesting to watch that kind of story take place because I think it's
Hmm.
very unique to have, and that's why I really enjoy this book for the fact that it uses like ancestry, where like
Hmm.
Bree is a medium and she gets to talk to her ancestors
Yeah.
because it makes it a conversation with it.
Hmm.
It's not just a judgment. There is like actual fighting
Yeah,
and
there's no
dialogue.
guessing here. We
Yeah.
we know what the wishes are of
Mhm.
people because we can actually access them.
Yes. So just well done.
Yeah,
You and I are
absolutely.
having such a good time. I hate to turn it to darker things,
Oh
but
no.
a huge part of this YA is the fact that it is all about the romance.
And here's the thing, that this is important to people online. Like, this is huge.
People love their romance, and I'm like, but
I
why?
know. And I'm over here like, but that is my least favorite part of this book series.
It is my least favorite part. Like, I couldn't care less about who she ends up with. And like,
This is
I'm
a very
almost,
like, I'm sure listeners know, this is a very popular book series online. People are very much like almost of the like Team Edward, Team Jacob thing
yeah,
online, where it's like Team Nick, Team Cell. I think people lean a little harder into Team Cell, which
yeah.
I get, but I don't like the triangle. I don't like this love triangle.
I've never been a huge fan of triangle love
Mm,
triangles, actually, because
me either.
I think they're always just two people who are vibing and then one person just kind of like, and I'm here.
And I
Uh,
could have been an option.
had you not met this other person? And so I just sometimes feel like Nick is obviously the man who's hanging out. And I think like some people
Mhm.
have been like, well, they could be a throuple because like bisexual king Cell. And I'm like,
I don't
yeah,
think that's happening.
those two could never be in an equal throuple with Brie
The
because they
way
would be
that their
constantly fighting over
relationship
each
is so
other.
fractured, Nick and Sal, this is
Yeah.
so fractured, where it's just like they have had such animosity towards each other for ages, and I don't think that they're gonna get over it in a way where they're gonna, I don't
And
know,
obviously
especially
there are
Nick.
obviously we can appreciate the fact that there are different types of relationships.
Hmm.
But to be a throuple, you would have to admit that it was like what, okay in the moment for Nick to actively punch Cell
because he
and
couldn't defend
because he
himself.
couldn't defend himself back. Like, you have
Right.
to buy into that, and that's inappropriate.
It doesn't
Like,
seem like it would work. And
and honestly,
I,
let's not teach kids that that is an appropriate thing to do. Like, it's
yeah,
not okay to hit people. It's not okay to do that. Yeah.
I honestly just don't think that Nick is a good match for Bree for many
No.
reasons. And like a lot of them go back to what I had said a little while ago, where it's like Nick is very much not understanding of Bree's situation in life.
Privileged
And
white boy who
be-
thinks he can like,
yes, like you just walk in there and tell them that you want this, and they'll give it to you. That always works for me. And
or
it's like,
like, I can run
no.
away from some, like, again, a lot of stuff, a lot of my issues with Nick stem from his treatment of Cell. And like, I don't
Mhm.
even like Cell all that much, but he is
Yeah.
still a person who was put in a horrible position that he can
Mhm.
never get out of. And Nick actively runs away from Bree and Cell, knowing how hurt Cell is, knowing that
Mhm.
like putting himself like distanced from Cell puts Cell in active harm.
Yep.
And he's like, but I have to figure out how to do this. And I can't join you until I fix it all. And it's like, no, that's really inappropriate. Like,
And
what are you talking
dumb
about?
on his
Yeah.
part. Just dumb. Like, tell the real reason why you're off, and it's because you were emotionally distressed because
Mhm.
your father died and you killed someone. Like,
Right.
that's the real reason. Don't make up this BS stuff about how you're trying to save the day. That's not it. We all know that's not it.
Well, and this is where
Don't
we
lie.
always say that like patriarchy fails men just as much as it does to other
Hmm.
people. Because if he could admit he needed help or
Yep.
admit that like he is a selfish human, maybe he could actively get some
Hmm.
assistance. But he is so privileged, and he's again a
Hmm.
well-meaning white person. Like, he's
Yes.
dripping with it, where everything in this book is telling us he's such a
Hmm.
good guy. He's there for Bree in the end. He's doing all the things, but then like he did actively kill someone,
Yeah.
he does run away, he does harm people, and like those are, and obviously people aren't monoliths. I'm not saying Nick deserves an unhappy or bad ending,
No, nobody's saying that.
but like he's not
And we don't
the
agree
beacon
with
of
the things
great.
that have happened to him either. Like he's
No.
got a bad dad. Like he had a really
Yes.
bad dad. And he's
Don't you hate it
had
when you have a bad dad?
bad
Sorry.
dad.
I just think it's always funny when you hear stuff like bad dad.
Bad dad.
Bad
But
dad.
I I don't think that either of us are saying that we think Nick deserves to have a hard life and he
No.
deserves worse situations. But I do think it's difficult when it seems like he's kind of off in La La Land sometimes, where it's like, "Na, na, na, na. All you have to do is just ask people to be nice to you and they
And
will
then
do
they
it."
are.
And it's
And
like, nope, not always, little
I
blonde
do
boy.
I do, unless like obviously Cell and Bree may end up together, and what a world. I feel bad for Bree. Um,
There's still hope for the everyone's single thing.
yeah, I know, I would love that. But I do appreciate that, like, obviously you and I have been out of high school for a while. I do have a coworker who has a daughter in high school, and hearing about some of the drama, and I'm like, maybe this book does know what it's talking about with high schoolers and being like, I really love him. It's been a month, and it's like,
Oh my.
you don't know him.
Oh my.
And it's like, I'm devastated he broke up with me to focus on things like school. And
You
it's
know,
like,
people on Love is Blind fall in love after a matter of hours, so
yeah,
it's
well,
possible.
they don't make you take an IQ test for Love is Blind, Laura.
They don't heavily vet that show at all,
I saw
as
that
we're
couple
learning.
TikTok. They're literally
We're not getting into Love is
scheduling.
Blind.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll tell you about it off mic. I apologize. I
Okay.
apologize. But I got distracted with Love is Blind. But yeah, I don't know. I obviously don't really care. I think it's more, I think sometimes like with books like this, the main throuple is
Mhm.
probably one of the lesser interesting dynamics. Like, I'm
Yeah,
very
it's
interested in
definitely
like,
not that interesting to you and I.
yeah, and like I like Will talking about his boyfriend who he
Mhm.
broke up with really recently. Like, it's been a month and he was like very much
And
into this
for
person,
super
and
mature reasons.
right? And like he was someone who was like, well, I fell in love with him and I tried to date outside the sphere, but now it's war. So like in
Hmm.
another world we would have been happy together, but we aren't anymore.
Hmm.
Great. I really like Alice. I think she
And
would be interesting to be like a human trying to find love in this hopeless racist play.
And then it's annoying because it's like so immature when it comes
Hmm.
to Nick and Bree and Cell, where it's like Bree totally forgot what she was doing because she was in Nick's bedroom.
Oh my, she just, do you
And
remember
it's like,
when she used to sleep
why are
here
you
every
in
night?
Nick's room now? You think you go in there once and it belongs to you? And it's like, hello, that is the sign of Arthur's room, Cell. Quit being rude. Go put on a shirt because
Go put on
oh,
a shirt.
somehow your shirt fell off. Like,
Somehow your shirt fell off.
Didn't that
Hmm.
happen at one point where she says something like, somehow his shirt got off, it
I
came
think it
off?
was ripped to shreds. Like, I think it
Yeah,
was
like
ripped to shreds. And it was like, oh,
really?
look at, I mean, you have to have horny moments because teenagers are
Yeah.
horny and they're like, oh, really? I saw abs?
What?
What? You mean I got to see abs today?
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
I can't handle abs.
It just seems very immature though, compared
Yeah.
when you compare it to other relationships, even
Yes.
within the same book that are of similar age. Like when you compare William, that was like a wake up call for me. Like there's other relationships in this book that are more mature
Well,
than
and
what's
again,
happening here.
Sarah had like Sarah had to deal with being in a she is biracial. So
Hmm.
she
Hmm.
is in a like she's in a biracial couple. Like that
Hmm.
is the fact. Like she passes for
Yes.
white, but like and her partner
Hmm.
was racist. That is
Is.
something that people have to handle all the time if they
Hmm.
are people of color, especially like, and that is a very specific experience.
Yeah.
I am more interested in that conversation and how
Yes.
Sarah will be grieving after this, having to had to turn on her partner, her person she's supposed to
Hmm.
spend the rest of her life with, because her partner was not a great person. Like that's
Yeah.
huge, especially when there's a power dynamic too, because Sarah is
Hmm.
not in a position of power in her own relationship. Like,
She's the squire. She has to listen to what her scion says.
mhm.
Like,
And so
oh,
like I'm way more interested in that in whatever the
sure.
heck the other three are doing because like
Yeah.
that's actually very interesting and something that like I think it would be helpful for teenagers to learn or experience about like this isn't your fault. You
Hmm.
can love a person genuinely and then learn something about them that means you can no longer be together and it's okay like you're
Yes.
not it's okay to make that mistake because you didn't know, you know,
Hmm.
and it's interesting.
I also just think that Cell comes off as so petty at times
Hmm.
that it's extremely frustrating to
Hmm.
take their relationship seriously. And he is so unkind to Bree that
So
you
unkind.
actively root against him because he also has had a very rough life. But you've said it multiple times when we've recorded this, and I think it's worth saying again that just because you've had terrible things happen to you does not give you permission to be terrible to other people.
Nope.
And Cell does this. He is terrible to
Hmm.
other people, and like he continually blames Bree for things, but then fails to recognize, like, oh yeah, you also do this to people, and I don't know. It's very hard to want him to be with Bree, even though it's like, yeah,
Yes.
they get along well. They seem to have stuff in common. They seem to have actual conversations beyond just like, it'll be so nice when you're my squire. I can't wait. Like that's kind of how
Yes, I'll be your squire. I
that's
mean, at
kind of how
least
Nick and Bree seemed at times, where it's just like, what are you two even talking about? Like nothing. And it seems like Cell and Bree have a little more depth to their
yes.
relationship, but at the same time, he's still terrible to her. And the way that she continually like people do this, not just Cell, they continually like attack Bree for like, do you realize what you're putting all of us through? Do you realize how you have treated us? Do you realize all you've done? Blah blah blah. And the way that Bree is like, you're right. I am sorry. And she like internalizes this and also
Hmm.
like goes back and she'll forgive people. She'll say sorry for things that I don't think she needs to apologize for. It
She
is
doesn't need
mind
to
blowing.
apologize. She is constantly like, I know I'm a terrible person and I was
Yeah, there
selfish and I ran
Cell
away.
will
And it's
say to
like,
her,
what are
"Oh,
you
you."
talking about?
Yeah, Cell will be like, "You're putting all of us in danger doing this." It's like, "Oh yeah, Cell, like you didn't put anyone in danger." Okay. Sure.
You tried to
And then Bree
murder a
will
human. Like,
apologize.
well, again, like the whole it wasn't your fault you tried to murder me. And I'm like, okay, you are right. In his head, he was doing what he was supposed to do. That doesn't excuse everything.
No,
Like, yeah,
it doesn't make it okay.
right.
I hmm.
So, yeah, we're in agreement.
Cell is something.
Yeah, he's a whole lot of something. I mean, I'm not the biggest Cell fan. I think
Mhm.
that they're obviously you can become a big fan of Cell later in life, but I think he just has more growing to do. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think the character is really just kind of at a turning point, honestly. Like, I know that when I was 19, I was a totally different person.
yes.
And this is very much like a period of growth in a person's life because even when I was 19, I was a very different person from when I was in high school.
Hmm.
So, like the way that you change throughout your life, this is a very difficult age in my opinion because it was for me. And I think he's just had a rough life. He's had a lot of things thrust at him. He's dealing with all of these things continually being put upon him and a bunch of responsibility and things that he doesn't know how to handle and being told that he is the greatest that there has ever been and the pressure of all of that. None of it's right, but it doesn't excuse him to be terrible to other people.
It doesn't. Yeah, I mean, that's you hit the nail on the head. You hit it perfectly. I do wish we got more of Cell outside of Bree because I think a big issue with us is
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes he is being the meanest to the person who's done the least to him.
Mm-hmm.
And because Dion wants us to feel sympathetic towards him, Bree is often the one feeling sympathetic towards him. And we're like, but he hasn't earned that with her.
Right.
I wish we could see him through the eyes of someone who is at least harsher to him. So he had some understanding for the reason he is the way he is,
Exactly.
or someone who loved him just as much as Bree, but was in a position of power and had a
Mm-hmm.
different context because Bree is constantly making allowances that he does not deserve with her specifically.
Yeah.
Not that this person does not deserve all the grace in the world or emotional support or all those things, but like, no, not in the
Mm-hmm.
case of what she's doing or what he's
Right.
doing. So, yeah.
How do we feel about Patricia?
Oh,
We can't get out of this season finale
look,
without mentioning Patricia.
look, Laura, she's from a different generation. She's 40.
40. She's from a different
she's,
generation.
she's 40. She's from a different generation.
The willpower
Uh,
it took me not to correct her when she said that to me. I can tell the therapy's working.
yeah. You're gonna think about it all night, but you didn't say anything. From a different generation. I'm 40. You and I are 8 years
We're
different in
we're the
age.
same generation. What are you
What are
talking
you?
about?
Oh gosh, that's so funny to me. Trisha, don't if you all are in therapy right now and you read Legendborn and Bloodmarked and you thought, man, my therapist is a lot like Patricia, I would just ask questions.
I
Ask
would say
questions.
red flags. Here's the thing. I think we said this when we were covering the first book. Patricia's role should not have been therapist.
Mhm.
This is
Yeah.
another nitpicky thing that we would like to change about the series is that we would have rather Patricia have been a character who was like a teacher or a guidance counselor rather than a therapist because
Yes.
the way that she handles Bree's situation seems misguided if you are a mental health professional like that.
That's exactly it. Yes.
Like you're not gonna just give up on somebody who is of an impressionable age, who is
Hmm.
grieving and could be in a very vulnerable position. You're
Yes.
not you're not gonna just be like, not for me, you're fired.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Especially after such a short period of time. And
Especially when you haven't helped her once. Like there hasn't been a moment.
no. And I would also argue that Patricia kind of oversteps some boundaries right off the bat with,
Hmm.
bringing in the root and telling her thing. Again, things happen so quickly. So I get it that it had to happen for the story to introduce these things. But I would
Yes.
also say that that's an inappropriate action on Patricia's part as well, is that she brings that up and introduces Bree to this, opening another can of worms basically, and putting her at more risk. And
Mhm.
yeah,
Agree.
knowingly.
Yeah, our take was right. Like our take was right. She shouldn't have been a
Hmm.
therapist. I hated book two when she goes, I already have a therapist. And I'm like,
No,
you specifically do not. And, or
you
when
don't
she's
have
like,
a therapist.
or in the recap portion, and here's what you missed on
Yeah.
Legendborn, where she's like, Patricia used to be my therapist, but she's not anymore. I'm like, girl,
Oh.
she fucked you. And she was a bad
Um,
therapist before she
she was
did
not
it.
good. And yeah, I appreciate Mariah and Patricia for being a community for Brie where she can
Yes.
feel for once at ease because
Mhm.
she's not the only person who looks like her. She has other
Yes.
people who can understand what it's like to be in her situation, even if they're not
Mhm.
directly in that situation with the Legendborn thing, but they understand Root at least. To have some of that, to have a community is great for her.
Right.
But Patricia's actions are very inappropriate.
They're
Uh,
so inappropriate.
and it's just a very weird way to handle the grief of a
Mhm.
child.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
would say too, her father is maybe kind of pushing her along her grief process a little too quickly too.
Yes. I actually don't mind
And
the dad. I
and
don't
he's
mind the dad.
grieving too. So
Yeah.
it's hard to be like the dad is wrong, but
Right.
it I, I know that like when
I
you're going
wish.
through a mental health struggle, I'm starting to have a little more like empathy for the dad because I've been harder on the dad where I'm like, he needs to know what his daughter's up to. What is he thinking? And literally when you're in the midst of something like so difficult,
Mhm.
you don't focus in on those type of things. Like they go out the window. You're just like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
it's probably fine.
Nothing makes less sense to me than bereavement leave, finding out that like if you lose a parent or a spouse, you get 8 days of grief
Hmm.
where you're not expected to be at work. And I'm just like, America is broken.
Hmm.
Like, that is specifically too short of a time to be
Yeah,
like, back to work 40 hours a week.
right.
Get him, go get him. The best way to get over something is to push through it, right? And it's
Hmm.
like, nope, the best way is to take care of your body and make sure you're cleaning your house and making sure you have actual support. But sure, work is great. Um, but yeah, I wish the dad, I wish there were, this isn't like, it's not a critique on the dad because I actually don't mind the dad because he's not enough on the page.
Hmm.
I wish the writing showed the work more on why he wouldn't be worried in a situation like
Yes,
this.
you're
Because
exactly
it,
right.
yes, like I don't ever read it thinking like the dad is off going, la 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 la, my daughter's not doing anything. She's just fine.
No,
And you and
I
I
don't.
joke
I,
about it, but
yeah,
like the
we joke
writing,
about it being like that, but I also
I
agree he's not
ass-
just like negligent dad.
no, I assume they're doing something to tell him
Hmm.
that like she's at school, she's doing this, but like the writing needs to do a better job of describing like what's happening. Like why isn't the school more informed about Alex and
Right.
Bree just taking off? Like have they been kicked out of the program right now? Like
Hmm.
and that is the one
Do they
like
have body pillows under their sheets that look like they're there? Or
it's a gaping plot hole. Like
yeah,
it's gaping.
yeah,
There's not enough route to cover it. I'm so sorry because like that is
yeah.
the one thing where I'm like this doesn't make any sense if it were like, hey, spring break, hey, summer break, fine. But
Hmm.
like to have them just off in the middle of nowhere during the school year in a very intense program, and they're like, don't worry about it. They're just so smart. They didn't need school in the first place. And I'm like,
Hmm.
that's not a good enough
But
reason.
that's not
Like,
good.
so I've never once blamed the dad. I do think that it's a failure in the plotting of this that we haven't
Fair,
had it
fair.
explained better.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would agree. And I was gonna throw this out just jokingly, but he needs to check into his employees that he hires a little more too,
Yeah.
because he's just like, how cool is it that a couple of women applied to be mechanics? It's
Women
like
in STEM.
women in STEM, woohoo! Like, okay, yeah, but did you ever think that this was like a pointed?
Did you ever think there was a
They
reason?
targeted you, like they wanted to be your employees because they would need to watch you. Okay.
Right? So strange. It's so strange.
Yeah, that's a bit much.
Right.
Hannah, do you have a favorite character besides Bree?
Um, hmm.
Mine's Alice, besides Bree.
Yeah, I feel like I don't get enough time with any of the other characters to like have a
I
straight up
mean, Valak is a
favorite.
pretty cool character.
Valak is a cool character. I hate that he's an old man hitting on
Yeah,
Bree though.
he's too old to be, making comments about like you look great in that outfit and let's hang
Yeah,
out.
let's
Like, no.
yeah. Learn better
Come
pickup lines. You're a
come
million
back
years
to
old.
my Jerry Springer bar with me.
You trash can.
Ugh.
I do really love Alice. I think Alice is a great character overall. I do also really like Will. I think Will is a ton of
Hmm.
fun.
Yes.
But I think we're supposed to love those characters, so I think
Yeah.
sometimes I have that like reader thing where I'm like, I know I'm supposed to love them, so why would I? And it's like, well, because they're great characters. And I really
Hmm.
appreciate how much Alice like works for Brie, like is there in the ways that Brie needs her to show up when she does
Yes.
show up for her.
Yeah, like
I
bringing her
very much
clothes,
appreciate
knowing
that.
how to help her with her hair, that
Yeah,
type of thing where it's just like someone who loves you knows the things
right.
that you need.
Which is like obviously I'm not patting someone on the back for doing something, but like I can't I like different hair types are hard to do. Like you could
Hmm.
never handle my hair, Laura.
No,
And
no.
like I think that it cannot be described how beautiful it is that Alice learned how to style Bree's hair and they
Hmm.
use it as a form of love and community together. Like
Hmm.
I think that that is beautiful and very sweet
Absolutely.
and just like something that I thought Dion did such a good job at pointing out that
Hmm.
like no, who's helping her? Alice. Like
Hmm.
she's handling her hair, she's styling it. And like that's a lot of people have like there's different types of hairstyles that you
Hmm.
can't do on your own that you might want and like it's very nice to see Brie be able to have that with her best friend.
Yes, completely agree. I think that she just got like a deeper understanding though of like the other people in the book in both books don't
Hmm.
really seem to understand that like Brie might need to take a shower to decompress, but you
Hmm.
know what? This sucks because she's got blood and grime in her hair and has to
Yeah.
wash it now. And that lengthens the process. And so then Alice is like, ah, that sucks. Like she gets it.
Yep.
And when Bree has to leave somewhere to go somewhere, the other people don't consider, oh, she might need a change of clothes. She might need a
Right.
toothbrush or this. And Alice knows that. Alice knows what snacks
Hmm.
she likes. Alice is a supportive person who knows Bree and
Yep.
knows how to help her. And
Hmm.
no one else seems to be doing that.
Yeah.
Like
I
even on the
agree.
basic level of just like knowing she needs a snack. Like
Right.
that is Alice is the only one that's like, "Oh, did we ask Brie what kind of snacks she likes?" No? Okay. I've got them.
Wow, you guys suck at this? Oh, you like her so much?
Oh,
Do you love her enough to do what I do? No, you don't.
no.
Which like I don't know. I really love most of my friends are women, and
Hmm.
so I am a huge fan of like female relationships. I think that they're some
Sure.
of the most fulfilling in the world. And I think seeing two young girls on the page where a lot of times like in books we had growing up, not all of them, because like not all of them, but a lot of them there was always like we have a crush on the same boy and we have to deal with that and we have this and we have to deal with that and
It's
like
nice to have a book where it's like there's not like the central argument and animosity isn't there between two women, like two girls,
yes.
because that seems to always be like a thing where there's like the Regina George versus the Katie Heron.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, do we always have to have two young women who are fighting against each other for no reason?
Right.
Like, no, we don't.
Right.
And we don't have that really in this one. Like, there is some obvious animosity because Tor is a racist, but I I mean that is different from the setting two characters up as rivals and just
Yes.
making them insufferable towards each
Mm-hmm.
other. And I'm glad that it doesn't exist in this book.
Agreed. Do you have any final thoughts? I feel like
You
we've
know, I really enjoy this book series a lot. And I think people should kind of look up Tracy Deonn's story because she has under like a lot of traumatic things in her life too and has dealt with a lot of grief. I listened to an interview recently that she had, and she explained that like a lot of writing this series was a way to deal with her own grief of losing her mother at a young age. And I think that that's really powerful to know that and have that
Yeah.
context and to see how healing writing can be for authors and how it's not only healing for authors, but it can be a really healing thing for readers too, because I'm sure there are lots of people who are either grieving or have been grieving or have been in situations like Bree that really needed to read a book with someone like them. So
That's really nice.
highly encourage people to listen to some author interviews with Tracy Deonn. She is incredibly intelligent and just really well thought out explanations of why she seems to do certain things in this series. We would love the opportunity to talk to her sometime. And
When she's not on deadline.
yeah, I mean, after she gets done with her TV
Every,
series or something, like
yeah. When she's not writing the next book, like
like
it's coming out.
I guess after she has some time.
Oh, when her busy schedule finally lets up a little.
Yeah.
Hey Tracy, come on the show. We'd love to have you.
But really, this is just like a testament to her skill as a writer. She writes extremely relatable and realistic characters in
Mhm.
situations that seem unprecedented, but are so incredibly real.
Yeah.
And I just kudos to her for creating a really great series, warts and all. Like you and I have picked at a couple things, but honestly, this is a phenomenal book series, and I stand by my thought that this should be taught in schools. Like this should be required reading in English classes. Like excellent series.
Yeah.
Hannah, any final thoughts?
I'm really glad we read this book.
Me too.
I'm really glad we got to do a little bit of YA. And I really hope people pick up this series.
Yeah. Give it a shot.
Because
Like I know a lot of our listeners are not YA people, but
yeah,
I'd really encourage you to check out this specific series.
right. And I'm really glad we did this as our, our specific look. It was a fun change up.
Mm-hmm.
And it was amazing to do because like I feel like we got to laugh a lot, but the
Yeah.
themes were just there and on it at all times. So that was
Yeah.
really helpful. And I think we'll I can't wait to get into the polar opposite of this when we go into
Our next season
the
is going to
Dresden,
be
the year of the
interesting.
Dresden.
Year of the Dresden.
Yeah, just go pick up this book no matter what. They're fun, they're easy. They go down smooth. Like they're
Mm-hmm.
so deep, but they're so wonderful. And I cannot wait to see what Dion does next.
Yeah,
So
agreed.
and thank you, everyone who joined us this season.
Yeah.
And if this is your first time with us, if you just like started listening, we hope you enjoyed this season. We usually get
Mm-hmm.
different people each season because sometimes books, you might have dipped in and been like, oh, I really want to hear two women laugh about Sel and Sayer,
Yeah.
and their ex Felicity, I guess. Or no, the Tor was
Flick.
their ex. Flick. No, Tor was both of their exes now. I'm
Yes.
assuming that they are
Yes.
broken up with Tor.
I would
Um,
assume so, but
I would assume that their
who
relationship's done,
knows?
but
You
uh
hope.
you hope. But we want to thank you for joining us. Again, this is
Yeah.
our third year doing this, and that's pretty great.
Yeah. We
Laura,
appreciate everybody for hanging on and supporting us, all our new listeners. Thanks everyone for sharing and talking with us. We love it so much.
this is definitely a labor of love, but we love doing it, and we can't wait to do, future seasons and all of that stuff. And so join us next week for a bonus episode
Bonus. Bow, bow,
where we
bow.
speak to Adrian Gibson about his recently published Mushroom Blues, The Hoffman
Yay.
Report, Book One. We read the first quite a few chapters of
Yeah,
it,
the first
and
8 chapters we read. It's great.
So fun. I can't wait to read the rest of it. So make sure you're
And also
going.
this interview, just to like give you some like a sneak peek of it, it is very, very insightful to listen to Adrian talk about his journey and how he was inspired to write Mushroom Blues and the time that he took to write this. Highly recommend listening to this.
He's amazing. I am fascinated by him. I want to be
Mhm.
friends with him. Loved hearing all about it.
I
Laura
consider myself
brought
a longtime friend because I've been listening to him this
uh
podcast for so long.
we did an interview with him as well. We did the No Rules November with his co-host of SFF Addicts. So you guys can go
Oh,
check out
yay.
all of those episodes. Make sure you're reading those books, and we can't wait to do that. And then we are going into Indie Mission. There's
Yes.
currently a giveaway going on. It started
Yay.
yesterday because I did make the post. I'm scheduling it tonight. So
Okay.
the giveaway
It was
is
out
going on.
yesterday on
So
Tuesday.
it came out yesterday. So make sure you are doing
And
that.
share.
And share, please, because this book looks
We
so
need
good.
people to
Laura,
read Before the Shattered Gates of Heaven. It is so good.
Laura's already read it. I haven't because I don't do my homework. But the giveaway copy, it is a signed giveaway copy from Bryan
Yes.
Glosemeyer himself. So make sure you're entering that because it's gonna be great, guys. Signed
Yes.
book copies. What could be better? Laura and I both got one because I had already ordered that one, so I was going
Yes.
to get one for the both of us.
Yay.
So we hope you're entering the giveaway contest and sharing and just like getting out the
Yes.
good news about this book and all other indies that we
Mhm.
had voted on because they're all amazing. So
Yes.
please make sure you are
Definitely
doing
support
that.
those indie authors.
And if you want to support us, just tell a friend about us, rate, review, and
Yes.
subscribe, or join us over on Patreon. You can join for as little as $1 a month.
We'd really appreciate it.
We did some great bonus content over there last month for the $5 and up listeners. We had a Hannah and Laura do D&D. It was
Yeah,
a
it was
ton of
fun.
fun. It was our first time doing D&D together at all. So that
Mhm.
was exciting. And then we also posted recently, a little bit belatedly for February because leap year and my birthday weekend is just a
Mhm.
terrible time to try to get something on a deadline. But we posted a reaction to the Dune popcorn bucket.
Spoiler,
It
we love it and
is
we both own it.
we both own it. We were really excited about it. We bought it for $100 each on eBay. So
I'm
make
eating
sure
my
you
popcorn out of it right now.
that is the stuff that it is making. Uh but yeah, so please follow us over there if you would so choose, and join us next week as
And
we
follow us
go
on all the
into
socials also.
oh yes,
We're at our pod.
OWWR
OWWR pod
pod. So
at all the socials, all of them. There's so
all of
many.
them. There's so
And you can
many,
email
and
us, ourpod@gmail.com, and join us on Discord too if you're ever over there.
all right. Well, thank you so much. Can't wait to see you guys next week with Adrian Gibson. Bye.
Bye.